Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this episode of the Off the Grid Show. This is a kind of a special one because we just got back, but that's why we're a little bit worn here from being out in a Model 3.
In the elements, a little snow fun.
Snow. I don't know if you can see this, but it's snowing outside right now. We just got back. You're seeing a little tidbits right here of what we just did, the shenanigans we just did. So I want thoughts from the peanut gallery here about the Model 3 and how you, because this is what, your first time in it?
First time,
Your first time in it?
Yep.
What did you guys think about the Model 3 just in general, before we get to snow? Like, what did you think about the interior? How you drove? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's like the pictures we've been seeing, but it's amazing to be inside of it. It's not as, I guess, it's not as futuristic as some people have been complaining about. I kind of like, it's clean, it's nice, it's functional. And it feels a little tighter than the X and the S in size, so I prefer it from a comfort perspective. It's a little closer.
Now you drive a rear-wheel drive S.
Yep.
You've been driving that for a long time, so you're used to that. This is a rear-wheel drive 3.
Yep.
What are you feeling difference-wise? Does it feel very similar?
It's similar, but you can tell there's been software and electronics and tweaks, right? All the stuff that we've been feeding Tesla for years, that's user input and data from the cars, is in this vehicle. You can feel it's another kind of iteration of the software. So the way the traction control works in the snow, the way the acceleration and deceleration, the regen works, is you can tell it's definitely different than the S.
For a car that's as simple as it was, I found that using the interface, having it all be on the screen, wasn't a challenge for me, but I could see...
You're young and smart.
Right. But I could see it being a challenge for some people who are more not as technically inclined.
Do you think that would stop people who are, my age or older, who would be like, I don't know, I need buttons for everything. I need to know where the AC button is, and now I don't know where it is.
I don't think it would stop people. I think it would just mean there needs to be classes on it. I found that's a common solution.
Robots.
Will take over most jobs, but and to be fair, I mean, a lot of people, middle-aged and up, need courses really on how to use a smartphone. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I'm saying really, like, genuinely, a smartphone has a lot of capability to it, and most people don't know half of the stuff that it can do. Right.
Aiden has a grandparent who recently went to class in her community on how to use her smart TV.
Right. So I think that there is smarter than us, right? I think that there is sort of a learning process around that. Like, I'm sure that there, when we switch from, I'm a stone chipper, and then it's like, okay, well, we've just moved over to, to metal, so yeah, we're doing bronze now. Sorry, Dave, we're doing bronze. And it's like, well, I can chip stone. No, Dave, we're doing bronze. Check it out.
So we're in the battery age now.
Yeah, I think it's going to be sort of a learning curve.
We've been in the computer age for a long time, but they weren't pervasive in every part of our lives until, more and more, right? Now, I mean, they're everywhere. The Burger King, you self-order in a kiosk. There's all this stuff. It's coming to all parts of your life, and the car is just one of those places.
Because it's a very simplistic Apple-like design, where it's like, everything is clean, everything is... I mean, it's the cleanest interior of any car I've seen.
Yeah.
Look, it's intuitive if you use electronics and computers and smartphones. Mm-hmm. If you don't, if that is not your day-to-day thing, and you want a car... It's not intuitive, and that's just reality.
And by the way, for those of you out there, I know that there are a lot of you who are middle-aged and over. I'm not making fun of you. But my advice would be, if you get a piece of technology, make sure you know what every button does. I think that a lot of people get afraid of buttons.
And just learn a few things.
Right, they just know how to, log into their email or something like that. But if you can just figure out, I love going into the settings. I've gone into the settings of every phone I've ever owned, went through every single setting, learned what it meant.
So do that with the 3. I mean, and do that with the S and X.
Before
just sit there in the driveway and just play around with it for a while, right? And you'll learn it. All right. This is the question that pretty much we get every day from viewers, which is, how does the Model 3 handle in the snow? And we just drove it in the snow. So let's ask you guys, because you guys are all driving it, how do you think it handles compared to cars that you have driven, both ICE and electric?
So first of all, I mean, I think...
Oh, and what is this car we're driving? It's rear-wheel drive.
Rear-wheel drive.
It's got the big battery, so it weighs a lot. It's like 3,900 pounds.
And premium package.
And it's got premium package. Now, tires, that's the... Right. I mean, we've got just all-weather 19-inch tires, so these are not special.
They're just standard.
We would not normally do what we did today in these tires, I don't think.
Right. I think we're going to switch those out for winter tires with just all-weather tires. Like, let's say you live somewhere where it doesn't normally snow, but sometimes you'll get a snowstorm and, it'll just sort of pass and get cleaned up. I think overall it felt great. So I drove it on the highway for quite a ways today. And that was towards the beginning of the snowstorm. It felt fine. I was driving at nice, 60 mile an hour clip, passing people on the highway who obviously didn't feel as confident. It didn't slip, didn't feel bad the whole time. Then today when we got to the parking lot, obviously there's 1.5 inches of snow on the ground. And, there's definitely some slippage. The interesting part is, though, that the car just doesn't want to spin out on you. Even when you do all the things that would make a car spin out. Jerk the wheel all the way to the left, you floor it, the car just will take a shaky and slippery turn to the left.
And we've talked about that before. This has to do with the way that motor controller works. So in a gas car, you don't have that torque curve in the up and down. That's a gas drive problem, whereas the electric drive can pulse the power much more quickly.
Yeah, talk about the pulsing, because we could see that outside the car while we were filming. We're watching the rear tire do a lot of that. What is that?
All cars have the same system, right? It's a sensor on the wheel. You apply power. It knows the car is not moving as fast as the wheel, and so it reduces the power. Doesn't matter if it's gas or not gas, because the electric motor is a finer control motor. It can allow and disallow power much more quickly, kind of like your ABS. If you slam on your ABS, you can feel when it's pulsing how fast the computer can do that. Reverse that for power. So you apply power, and it's like slipping, not slipping, slipping, not slipping very quickly. And so it's actually very easy to drive a rear-wheel drive car in the snow, and I've known this for years with the S.
So you're saying electric rear-wheel drive car.
So let's talk about that, because a lot of people are waiting for an all-wheel drive model. They don't want to order the rear-wheel drive model. If you had the choice between all-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, and you live in New England,
and you had to pay for it,
and you'd pay for the difference, and you live in Minnesota, Canada, New England, would you go for the rear-wheel drive or pay extra for the all-wheel drive?
So it really depends on your driving style. The rear-wheel drive electric cars, of the ones that I've driven, all have this benefit that they don't. If you're used to driving a high-powered rear-wheel drive like a German car or something, all the problems of driving that type of car in the snow don't exist in these electric cars because of what I'm describing, the electric pulsing ability. But if you are more comfortable with the all-wheel drive car, there's an additional benefit to all-wheel drive electric cars, which may not get discussed very much, which is that in the Tesla especially, the front wheel, the reason the cars are front wheel drive is it's more efficient to pull than to push.
Okay.
So in these cars with the performance drivetrain in the back and the regular drivetrain in the front, the Tesla X and S, what happens on the highway is it actually drops the power on the rear and raises it on the front. So in essence, with an all-wheel drive Tesla, with a smaller motor up front, on the highway, you're actually getting more efficiency because it's using the most efficient motor in the most efficient mode to drive the car.
That's interesting.
So it's a slight technology benefit, but there's a cost to that.
And so what about the snow?
So from a snow perspective, I don't know. I haven't driven all-wheel drive Teslas in the snow very much. I'm guessing you get some of the same stuff, right? The pulsing you get. It's not like it gets going any faster, does it?
Right.
Yeah. So for the difference between rear and all-wheel drive for people with X's and S's that are all-wheel drive, I don't know that there really is for just generically for electric drivetrains. I mean, switch to front-wheel drive. How do you think front-wheel drive is in the snow for electric?
I think it's okay. It wasn't. So I've taken my Leaf and I had just standard. They're barely even all-weather tires. These were more just like as efficient rolling efficiency as we could possibly get. Basically,
translate to cheap college student tires.
Well, no, it's whatever came on the Leaf, but in the Leaf, obviously, they want to have as best good a range as you can get, so they put the low rolling efficiency.
LRR tires.
And so, I remember having to try and go up an incline, and it has traction control, which you can turn off. And I was trying to go up this incline. It's some go over, cross an intersection, take a left. And it was good that there was no one coming because I wouldn't it took me something 15 seconds or something to do just because it wouldn't put the power down Not that it had the grip to do anything with it
And
anyway.
this is exactly what it boils down to, right? Which is true, I think, rear or front, or
any car.
Yeah, any car.
It's the tires.
If you have the right rubber, then it's going to make a big difference.
Right. People I've talked to who live in really snowy climates that like spend the money, switch out your tires to winter, takes care of most of the problems. That's why doing the X, it feels really good every year when I do that. Right. So I mean, a lot of people who are in the states where they're not quite sure, like you were mentioning, like if it only is going to snow like once during the winter, do I switch out? No. Then maybe not. But
the basic rule is if your town shuts down when it snows, don't bother with winter tires.
Right.
Let's talk about the range. So we just drove kind of a long distance today on the highway. I was in the X, you were in the 3. And what numbers were you seeing for watt hour numbers in the 3? Because I was seeing some pretty high numbers. I had to keep the heat on a lot of times to keep everything melting. And I was using up to like 550 watt hours per mile. What were you seeing in the 3?
I was seeing pretty consistently 365 watt hours per mile.
And were you turning on all your seat warmers and heat?
Basically, seat warmer that I was sitting in, heat full blast on the windshield and the rear defrost.
So pretty much everything.
Basically everything that you could turn on was blasting, and I was going 60 miles an hour, 60, 65, in that ballpark. Highway speeds, I was very impressed. When I drive my Leaf, if I'm going like that and I have the heat on, I'm never going to see that efficiency.
Yeah, can we talk about that for a second? Because we just recently looked at some stats from your Leaf. When you turn the heat on in the Leaf, I think we were using 3,500 watts.
Yeah, we use about 3 kilowatts.
I thought we had a broken meter. I was like, that can't be right. And then, but we tested it. And then I thought, well, seat warmers, that must use a lot.
No.
Barely use anything.
Seat warmers are the best.
So seat warmers I found in an electric car are, especially if you don't have a lot of range, either if you've driven 200 or so miles in a Tesla, or if you just own a Leaf. Your seat warmers are the most efficient way to heat your body because you're just heating your body. You're not heating up the air, which then heats your body.
Resistive heating, which is what the forced air heating is very it's power hungry.
Right.
Now, I'm going to throw this out there. I don't want to get a lot of hate from Tesla community because I love Tesla, but I think the Model 3 is a Model S killer. I'm just going to say it. It's not a mean thing to say. I think it's a good thing. I think if we think about it for a second, it's a good thing because I think that was the whole point of the Model 3. It was supposed to be such an amazing car that people would just want it, and I think they do. But you guys drive S's. I'm not saying it's at the level of your car, but tell me the things that it's lacking because I don't think it's lacking that much.
If you look at the top end Model S right now, the Model 3 is never going to be that car. I think what's naturally going to happen is the production will drop off and the S will become what it should have been in the first place, which is an expensive, very high performance, more luxury car. And the 3 is going to be, basically the 3 is going to set the bar for the rest of the market is I think what's actually going to happen. So the S was just the only way to do it out of the gate. Now it'll settle into its rightful place. And the 3 will never, you're never going to have 3 second 0 to 60 ludicrous in a Model 3. I don't know that they're going to do that. They might.
So last question here. If there are people who are waiting for their 3, but it's going to take a long time, and they can now look at the used market for the Model S, and there are some in the 40s, right? So you can get a used Model S in the 40s. What do you guys think? Should they wait for the 3 couple of years, or should they go out there and look for a Model S? Now that probably in the 40s, it won't come with like the autopilot features and
so
stuff.
it depends on what you're waiting for, right? Do you just want the car in the range, or do you want all the bells and whistles of the technology? If you just want the car in the range, I mean,
look, car in the range and the supercharging.
Yeah, and supercharging is another benefit. But if you're the type of person that buys a brand new Mercedes and you want a brand new car, then it's probably not a good choice. But if you're willing to wait 3 years, take all that depreciation out of the equation, and you're perfectly happy taking a lease return, luxury German car or something else, I don't know that you can really compare the two, right? So the 3 is designed to address a certain market segment, and the S out of the gate was, that kind of more luxury bar, and I think it's going to stay that way.
Now, we know you've been waiting for it. This is footage you're going to see of us doing modified donuts and other slippage. Let's just talk over it a little bit here so you guys remember what we just did. How did it feel? So you were driving it for some of that.
I drove a little bit.
Talk about the e-brake that you were using. So what was that all about?
Yeah, so actually I've never had a chance in my car to use the emergency e-brake. And when the S first came out, there was no easy way to engage the emergency parking brake. So today in the parking lot, we were trying to figure out how to make the car perform in the snow. And it turns out the software now works the same way on both cars. You can hold the park button
yeah.
for second and a half, 2 seconds. Just keep holding it.
Yeah.
And the car goes into park mode. And sure enough, the emergency brake works as a safety feature. So it also does fun stuff in the snow.
Well, so I've tried it in the X, and it doesn't put it in park. When we've been driving with the X, and you press and hold the parking button, you can feel the emergency brake kick in.
But it doesn't like that.
It doesn't put it in park.
Interesting.
But it was putting it in park today, or it was just...
Yeah, so when the car stopped moving, it showed park mode.
So thank you for joining us on this episode of Off the Grid, where we talked all about the Model 3. Check back with us.